There we go. That's fine.
Order this candy. I just have to put in my mouth for a minute.
I grab my notes here too. First of all, it's a thrill to meet you. I have been personally, to give you just a 2-second background on me, I have been trying to research this topic for many, many years. And it's mostly because I just have an interest in it. I'm not somebody who's coming along saying that I'm channeling things or that I'm an abductee or anything. I'm not even worried about that. I'm very impressed with the way that so many people have taken a serious academic attitude towards this subject. And I'm actually trying to do work on interviewing people like yourself who have sort of helped bring this subject out really that much closer to the mainstream over the past 10, 20 years. It's really been amazing. I have followed your work a little bit. I'm trying to get up to speed with as many people as possible.
Can I give you an overview?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. I started working with Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the astronomer, in 1980.
Right.
And it was just all serendipitous how I met, but the serendipitous how I met came, of course, on everybody else. So somebody's controlling this.
Right.
I don't know who it is. I'm not a contactee.
Right.
And when I start working with an astronomer of that caliber, I know it's real. There's no, do I believe, do I not believe? He worked for Project Global.
Sure.
He's a government person.
Right.
And his method of questioning people and looking at the phenomenon was a scientific way of doing it. And I worked with him until he died in '86.
Right.
Then I moved to Italy, and because I worked with Hynek, the Italians started to ask me to write articles, and I started researching field research. So my 3 books, Connecting the Dots, Making Sense of the UFO Phenomenon, Exopolitics, How Do You Speak to a Ball of Light, and the new one that's dedicated to George Neri, All the Above, come from direct word-for-word interviews, as you saw me interview this gentleman, because Paula doesn't know what's going on. Okay, I have the slightest idea what's going on.
Fair enough.
But the only way I can do that for the future, for our children, for the university students that will be studying this in a serious light, is to collect the witness testimony of credible
And document
people.
it now while you can.
Yes.
That's right.
Of credible people.
Yes.
It is just recently I've talked to a couple of contactees because I have trouble wrapping my mind around the contact scenario. However, I know it exists, and having had as a special friend John Mack, who came to my home in Rome, and then I had a relationship with him in that, he and I emailed, and I went to Newport with him on vacation with Bud Hopkins and a lot of other people. I started getting into the contact scenario, thanks to the expertise of John Mack, who was an insider, by the way, because he worked with Lawrence Rockefeller funded him.
Right.
So I began to see the background of all these researchers, how they all worked, where we were all going. And one of the things that turned me off about the field was the infighting and the debunking done by our own community against each other.
I was going to touch on that in a little while. Okay.
So I may be answering your questions.
No, that's fine.
And the reason why I saw this horrible debunking was because when I did Colonel Philip Corso case, and it was serendipitous I met Corso because my office sent me to Roswell, the 50th anniversary, and I did not...
I've heard you tell this story before,
I didn't want to do the story, I didn't know who this man was. And I ended up in the room next to him in a place that was all sold out since February.
Right.
There was a room next to him open for 3 days, and it was a miracle that I could get that close. And plus, Corso could give me an incredible interview, which is in my first book about contact he had with the being.
Right.
The being that said, "A new world if you could take it," when he asked Corso to come aboard the ship. I couldn't wrap my mind around that either, so I didn't print it because I said to the good colonel, who, remember, was the head of intelligence in Rome in 1944. He's no schmuck off the street.
That's correct.
Had done the Korean War under Douglas MacArthur and had worked in the Pentagon. I said to him, I can't print this, Colonel, because people will think you're a crazy old man. And he put up with that. But I knew him very well, and after he died, I did print it, and I did talk about the things that Colonel Corso talked about. I, by accident or design, have been with all the major top players in the UFO field. By accident or design, I don't know. But you could name them, and I've interviewed.
Yeah, sure.
And I have not formed any opinion because I don't know what's happening. However, I will give them to you and everybody else who wants to read them in a format that doesn't have my opinion or my verdict.
Sure.
And those are the books that I've written, word for word interviews. I have the tapes of those interviews, like I have the tape of the one you saw me do.
Of course.
And so that is my contribution to humanity. Add to that the fact that I'm an international journalist, and I'm talking to the people from Hesdalen, Norway, because I know about the Hesdalen case, and we have one going on in Italy right now, near Genoa. So I can get the Hesdalen people from Norway to come down to Genoa to look at the Italian case, and I'm also involved in world planetary ufology.
Sure.
Not just American situation, because I lived in Italy for 15 years. So I can connect the dots on a world view.
Right.
And I'm going to finish this conversation by saying, after having been a nuts and bolts ufologist and seen the infighting and the lack of respect that people have towards each other, I have graduated to exopolitics.
Right.
Exopolitics for me is the study of the implications, sociological and political, of the extraterrestrial presence on Earth, and the scholarly study of this in a university.
Right.
And that's where I want to
go.
No, but that's what my books are going to be in the future. There'll be textbooks for this scholarly study.
I've heard you make that comment before,
yeah,
too.
well, it has to be, because
yes.
I didn't put anything into these books. These are the words of the people that I interviewed, and some of them are dead.
Right.
You know, some of them are very courageous that came forth with a lot of this.
There's a lot of people that would say that you're courageous for doing what you're doing. So.
Well, it's like, I feel like somebody's remote controlling me to do this. Okay? I have no idea.
I kind of feel like that's how I ended up here, to tell you the truth.
I have no idea who it is, and I'm not curious either. I mean, I don't want to deal with that right now. I just want to deal with getting this over with.
Right.
So the thing is, that's where I stand. Exopolitics for me is a world study. It is not about the lights in the sky. It is about the implications for humanity, and much more intellectual.
Right.
Even though I have all the hardware and everything to prove that it's all real, I mean, I know all these people.
Right.
For me, I want to go to the implications. Who speaks for planet Earth? You don't go touching aliens that might have some kind of, virus like they did in Virginia, where the poor guy died because he didn't put a plastic between him and the little being in the Virginia case.
Right.
Our stuff or their stuff, Area 51, what are we looking at? Our stuff or their stuff, and when we have a space war, who are we shooting at, ourselves? And drones? So these are serious for me implications of exopolitics, and they also come from my interview with Paul Hellyer, ex-Minister of Defense. And I've had long conversations with him, and I didn't even realize that I'm in his book. It's coming out. He's written a book. And my interview with him is on YouTube, and he is, again, like Colonel Corso, he's just not anybody off the street. He's ex-Minister of Defense of an entire nation, Canada. So I've got these big top hitters who are bringing these very political and crazy questions to humanity, and I can't be bothered with the people who tell me if I believe in UFOs or not. Okay, that's just get away, because I mean, it's so real, it's so incredible, and the people involved are talking. I mean, Edgar Mitchell is a friend of mine also, and so is Clark McClung, who worked at NASA for 22 years, who tells me he saw a 10-foot tall alien speaking to our astronauts in the payload of the shuttle. You want to go there mentally? I mean, he said it's one of many cases. I have shuttle footage that I don't know if I have time to show, where the UFO comes right up to this International Space Station, does a little turnaround and goes away. It is not a piece of space junk. It's stuff they see every day. The UFO's coming, it's not shooting, killing, or it's doing a little turnaround and goes right away. There's so much of this footage that's out there, there's so much proof that's out there, that I think what we should be doing is all the nations of the world sitting at a table discussing how we want to deal with these people. So maybe I've thrown too much at
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, it sets up a couple of different things. I'll go to that first. One of the things that I was very impressed with when I first started to investigate your work was your relationship with Monsignor Balducci. And I've heard you make a lot of comments, and I know that he's been discussed ad nauseum by a lot of different people, but I have a couple of questions about that. First of all, do you have any idea what it was that caused him to come out in the first place, that sort of inspired him, or whatever it might have been, that started him on that path?
Okay, Monsignor Balducci was a wonderfully pure human being. He saw things clearly, he was very innocent. he had no inhibitions or no worries about any danger around him.
Reprisals and
No.
anything like that, right?
And yet the Vatican used him because they did not